I'm not recommending for every future president that they take a shellacking like I did last night. I'm sure there are easier ways to learn these lessons.
In 2006, President Bush talked about the thumping that Republicans received, and now in 2010, we have the shellacking for Democrats.
And neither man appears to have enjoyed the experience. Top Line begins right now.
Welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Karen Travers.
And I'm Jonathan Carl.
And every day we bring you the latest, greatest political news, pop culture, mix of everything. And I am joined by my sleep-deprived, yeah, a little bit of that. We get into that. Joined by my sleep-deprived John Carl, who is back from Nevada covering the election out there.
Yep, I will try to muddle through this on no sleep. Let's start right with no Slurpees needed. Check this out, or I guess required. The president is inviting the congressional leadership, including incoming Speaker John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, to come to the White House on November 18th. He says that this is a meeting that will go, I think, into the evening. He says we might actually have dinner together if it comes to that. And listen to what else the president said this morning.
We can't afford 2 years of just squabbling. What we need to do is make sure that everybody's pulling together, Democrats and Republicans and independents.
Well, there's the pivot.
It's certainly a lot of buzzwords. Everybody is talking about compromise, cooperation, collaboration. But I think everybody also realizes it's going to be really tough to get anything done for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Bachmann overdrive. Michelle Bachmann, Congresswoman out of Minnesota, has said that she is going to be running for a Republican leadership position, the GOP conference chair. She is challenging Congressman Jeb Hensarling. And this is very interesting because this position obviously sets sort of that public agenda, that public message for the party. And Michelle Bachmann is coming in with some Tea Party support behind her, and she really wants to make that the message. Jeb Hensarling is conservative, but not backed by the Tea Party.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, she's really a Tea Party icon. If you go back to that first massive Tea Party protest that we saw in Washington right before the first health care vote in the House, that was her rally. She was the person behind that. She is a true Tea Party hero. But, you know, Hensarling has the support of the Republican leadership. And this guy is not exactly a moderate.
Right.
I mean, as a matter of fact, the Club for Growth, Karen, rates in order who's the most conservative on fiscal issues. You know, 1 through used to be 178. Now it's a little more. And Hensarling was ranked the 3rd most fiscally conservative member of the House. Bachmann, number 42.
Does she have a chance?
I don't think she does, but we'll see. Next up, recriminations, or, well, I can't actually try to pronounce that word. Recrimit, she changed it. You changed it, Colin. Look, what we're talking about here is the Republicans now, many are saying they actually had a chance to take the Senate. And if it weren't for people like Jim DeMint and the Tea Party Express that got involved in Republican primaries and endorsed people like O'Donnell in Delaware, Ken Buck in Colorado, in the case of the Tea Party Express, Sharon Angle in Nevada, each one of those races was eminently winnable, and instead the true believers came in and said we need to, you know, go for these hardcore, you know, Tea Party conservatives that turned out to be really failed candidates.
And of course, you're going to talk to some of those rank and file conservative Tea Party. You'll say, well, this is what the party wanted. This is what the people in these states, these are the candidates that they wanted. But of course, they're not thinking about that national landscape. Delawarean voters weren't thinking about how this affects the balance of power in Washington.
And, you know, especially look at the Tea Party Express. They got involved in 3 primaries, just 3, big time 3 primaries. Nevada for Sharon Angle, Delaware for O'Donnell, and Alaska for Miller. They were successful. We were all talking about the power of Tea Party Express. Now look where they are.
Nobody won. Well, Miller has.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Still counting
I also think it's
Alaska.
interesting, the only phone call Jim DeMint allegedly got from a 2012 contender for president, Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney.
Very interesting. And this brings us to number 4, Sarah Palin, of course. I am Palin, hear me roar. I think this just roars for itself, so we'll let the video play.
It may take some renegades going rogue to get us there. It may take folks shaking it up to get there. We've got to do this together.
guess that's Sean Duffy with the axe, right? It's pretty frightening.
Yeah, a little
He did
scary.
win, though,
He did. This is the first video from Sarah Pack released after the Tuesday's elections, and she is certainly not being subtle there, ending with that bear.
No, not at all. There's Mama Grizzlies, Papa Grizzlies, everything else. But now we have our own Grizzly coming to us from the great state of New Hampshire. Senator Judd Gregg, our guest here. Can you hear us, Senator?
Yeah, I can, Jonathan. That's a unique description. I haven't had that applied to me before, but I'll take anything.
We've heard you roar. We've heard it. Senator, thanks for joining us. I want to get to you. You're obviously on the Debt Commission. I want to get to that. You guys now have to get to work now that the election is over. But before we get to that, I want to ask you about the results we saw Tuesday and the way Republicans deal with it. We just heard from Senator McConnell, just gave a speech at the Heritage Foundation, standing by a statement he made last week saying that the most important job he has now is to ensure that Barack Obama is a one-term president. How do you sit down and work with a congressional leadership that makes that the starting point?
Well, I don't think that's exactly what he said. I think he said that any Republican leader believes that his job is to elect a Republican president. And of course, the other side of that coin is any Democratic president, Barack Obama not being the exception, views his job as getting reelected. So that's just politics. That's the way it is. But that doesn't mean you can't work towards getting some things done in this country. You know, the American people send about as definitive a message as I've ever heard. And the message is simple. Stop the spending, get the deficit under control, get this economy going. The message is not confused. And both sides of the aisle should have gotten the message, and it means let's stop the spending, get the deficit under control, and get the economy going.
Well, do you think, we heard the White House yesterday, President Obama really conciliatory. I think we counted up the number of times he said the word responsibility in his press conference, and it was quite a lot, half a dozen or more. But do you think that the White House got that message that you say voters are sending? And then how do they work with a Mitch McConnell who has made it his goal now to defeat him in 2 years? Where can they actually get some compromise?
Well, as I said, their goal is to get reelected. So I think that's just a side issue. You know, that's governance and that's politics. But yes, there are a series of places that we should be able to work together. Number one on the list, of course, is getting the deficit under control, getting spending under control. Hopefully the Deficit Commission can give some good ideas in this area. But clearly there has to be cooperation there. There should be cooperation on issues such as energy. You know, we're shipping $300 billion a year overseas to people who don't like us to buy energy from them. We shouldn't be doing that. And clearly we should be able to have a domestic energy policy that allows us to keep that money here and produce jobs here. Same is true in immigration. This is a big issue. We should be getting on the immigration issue and resolving it. Education, tax reform. There are a lot of places where I think we can come together as a nation and certainly as parties in the Congress. I'm not going to be a member of the next Congress, but the parties in the Congress should be able to come together and govern. I don't think the American people expect us not to govern. They didn't. This election wasn't saying, hey, don't govern. This election was saying, get the debt under control, get the deficit under control, get spending under control, do something about this economy.
Okay, so you are a member of the Deficit Commission, and you are still a senator. We get you for a lame duck session. What happens with this Deficit Commission? Do you think that you're going to get 14 of your 18 members to actually agree on a program?
Well, we've been working very hard and for a long time, and everybody understands the parameters of the problem. The problems are that if we don't do something, this country's headed towards bankruptcy. We're going to pass on to our kids a nation which is basically insolvent. And as a result, we've got to do something. Can we get 14 of 18 people to gather around a series of ideas? We're not going to make a global solution here, but at least a very significant statement that we're going to do something to bend down in the out year the debt costs and also get the deficit under control. I think we can. I hope we can, because if we don't, I tend to look at us right now as the last best hope for something, but maybe the next Congress will be the next best hope. But right now, we're the only game in town for doing something substantive, and I hope we can do it.
In that significant statement, as you just said, Senator Gregg, do you see any room for compromise on tax cuts?
Well, I think it would be a huge mistake. Yes, from the president's standpoint, I think the president basically opened the door to extending the tax situation, the tax rates, which we should do. I mean, we don't want to raise taxes in the middle of what is a very slow economy. That would dampen any sort of economic recovery dramatically. So we want to extend the tax rates and maintain an atmosphere where people want to go out and invest and create jobs. And I think the president did open the door on that issue, and hopefully we can resolve that before the end of the year, because the tax rates go up at the end of the year, and that would not be healthy for us as a nation.
But let me get back. You said you hope that the commission will make a significant statement. Are you going to be able to tackle the big ones? Are you going to come up with a proposal that would rein in the growth of Social Security, Medicare, and you once told me you thought that there might be a mix of tax increases in this as well, not out of the question.
Tax reform. We should. Basically, my view is Willie Sutton was right. You know, they asked him why he robbed the banks. He said, because that's where the money is. Well, when you're going to address the issue of spending, where is the money? It's on the entitlement side of the ledger. We can do a lot of things on the discretionary side of the ledger. Tom Coburn has some really superb ideas in this area. But as a very practical matter, the entitlements are the game in town, and we need to make proposals which are substantive, and they'll have to be bipartisan. You can't take on these huge entitlement programs, which every American is affected by, in a partisan way, because the American people won't accept that. They want to see fairness, and fairness is defined by bipartisanship. And yes, you're going to have to adjust benefits in these major entitlement accounts, whether it's Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid for that matter. Medicaid is equally out of control. So those all have to be addressed, in my opinion, if you're going to make progress on this big issue of debt.
All right, Senator Judd Gregg, we look forward to getting you back down here for at least a few more weeks as a working senator on Capitol Hill. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.